Hi, everyone, and welcome to Legal Limelight. Today's guest, you all should know if you don't already, Vivek Jayaram. He's the owner of Jayaram Law. He is one of my mentors and inspirational people in this industry. Vivek is a leader in pioneering in the creator economy space. He has led not only artists and entrepreneurs and entertainers on how to protect their intellectual property, but he has expanded into a amazing boutique intellectual property and additional services, which we'll talk about, Vivek, because I
Yes.
know you're
Yeah. Yeah.
continuing to grow and scale. So you have been a huge inspiration to Eska leading the way. I think you're one of the very few people in this space that has decided to build something that's different than any of the other boutiques, any of the other big firms out there, but still have this high level of top tier service, top tier quality for your clients. So I'm so excited to chat with
Thank
you about the
you.
firm
Thank
today.
you. Thanks, Francesca. Thanks for having me here. And I'm so grateful. And I'm also like so impressed with everything you've built with Eska. And I'm excited to see what happens for you in the future.
Thank you. I remember like you were one of the first people when I would go live during COVID that would like actually watch my lives and comment. And I'll never forget that like support made me like
Oh,
kind of keep
cool.
going with it.
Yeah, yeah, cool. Well, thanks for that. No, it's funny how you remember those like people that helped you in the early days because it like sticks with you forever. Because I'm like 15 years in now, and I have those memories too.
And I feel like your firm has grown and evolved so much from even when we first met, like during COVID. So why don't we start? I usually start at the beginning, but
Yeah.
I really want to get into like what you're doing now because I think it's so different and it's so fresh. So can you just give us a give us an update on the firm and what things you're working on?
Yeah. Yeah, no, no, sure, for cool. So I think you know, like you said, I mean, we've been around 15 years, but I'll give a little bit of the story so that it contextualizes what we're
Please,
kind of doing now.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I most of my life, like most of my friends have been creative people, like musicians or artists or people who maybe got into fashion or tech founders, technology, whatever. And I just always surrounded myself by those kinds of people and was always sort of interested in and connected to and sort of drawn to like these kinds of people, right? And I don't think I ever realized how core that was to sort of my life until I graduated law school and I started my legal career. And the first job I had, which was amazing, is I clerked for a federal judge, Judge Jordan, on the Southern District of Florida. And so that was great. But then I jumped into big law.
Yeah.
And the thing about big law, or my experience at least, there was met a lot of great people who I'm still friends with 15 years later. I feel like I got to work on some really interesting things, but at the end of the day, after a few years, I really missed the sort of connections that I had with like the creative community for all those years, kind of growing up and in my sort of young adult life. And so like not really crazy about the culture of the legal industry. I kind of think it's conservative, it's slow, it's just not really I don't think representative of necessarily the things and the values that sort of I have. And so I just decided to go out on my own. And this was like in 2009, right in the heart of the financial crisis. And
Wow.
a few years after I started, several friends would later tell me like, we thought you were absolutely crazy for doing this when you did it. But I left, and I really left with, didn't know anything about starting a business, certainly didn't know anything about starting a legal business, but I had quite a singular vision, I thought, which was just like, I want to surround myself by the most creative people on the planet, right? And I think the obvious thing that most people would think of when they hear that is, okay, you want to work with really sort of creative clients, right? But I also wanted to take it one step further because I figured that there must be people like me out there somewhere,
Yeah.
right? So the idea was to also try to bring those people in also. So work with the creative clients, but build the really creative team. And so that's what we did. At the very beginning, we started really in three major, like sort of major areas, which was like arts and culture, fashion, and tech. And what a lot of people don't really realize, or those that do, you got to kind of, go back about 15, 20 years. But for those sort of first 15, 20 years of the internet, like most founders were like kind of in the same rooms as like artists and like creative people. In my view, it's only really been in the 2010s where I always say like, tech kind of went from Soho to Wall Street, and it's like not necessarily now sort of, um, kind of associated necessarily in creative spaces as much as it's associated with like the, financial markets essentially, right?
That's
So
interesting.
that was like the first, yeah. So that was like, so from 2009 to 19, I guess I always call that like Jairam V1. We had what I think you could probably say was a
Wow.
somewhat, a small boutique law firm. I started as a solo practitioner. We added a, New York office in 2015. I started this in Chicago. And then in 2015, I opened up New York. I moved back to Miami where I had done my clerkship and where I now live now. And really, I would say it's been these last several years, as you mentioned, where we've kind of taken things not in a different direction, but it's more like we were able to put ourselves in a position where we're able to really start to execute on this vision I had, which kind of all can be sort of tied back to our tagline, which is lawyers for innovators.
Yeah.
And and so I think what really happened, Francesca, was in those early days working with founders, working with artists, working with emerging, creative directors of fashion brands. These are all people who are moving fast, they are disruptors, and they really don't have the patience to sort of work in the way that traditional legal services work, right?
They don't want a 10-page memo and telling them
I
how
don't
not
want
to do
the
something?
right.
No?
Don't want the 10-page memo. And I think the other thing that I realized, and I really am so grateful for the experience I've had working with artists over all these years, because they really have, they make, like Wall Street bankers look timid, right? They can absorb a tremendous amount of risk. And I learned very early in my career how to do deals, how to litigate cases by absorbing a lot of risk. And I think that has been something that has, ended up being a little bit of a calling card for us, because we end up sort of being like the firm that is super happy getting to yes, right? And figuring out how to do the thing that the brand or the company or the entrepreneur wants to do, when every other firm might be obsessed with sort of the issue spotting of the obstacles and challenges and things that could go wrong in that, right? Like lawyers, we're not very good at blue sky thinking, right? And so that I feel like, was a great sort of early experience. But really, lawyers for innovators just kind of means like, lawyering for the future. And that's really what the sort of spirit and ethos has been for us all these years. So right when the pandemic hit, and this is what kind of, now I'll answer your question finally, when the pandemic hit, everybody was, we were emotional in so many different ways, and we were probably all, pulled in so many different ways. We didn't know, are we going to be sort of, poof into oblivion? Is this a new world? What's going on? And very early on, if you remember, in the pandemic, is when all of a sudden this like obscure little corner of the technology world known as the blockchain, right, sort of, became mainstream. And so, we were already working with a few blockchain startups from before the pandemic, but these companies were not really getting funded. Like I said, it was an obscure little corner, I feel like, of the internet. And so we had some fluency, with these kinds of issues of protecting IP on chain, or things like, dealing with authenticity for digital art, and, sort of those kind of things. And so before we knew it, we were working with a lot of these blockchain startups, but then we also started getting hired by a lot of brands who were looking to sort of do things in this space. And it also sort of helped that, as a little bit of just a tinker and a nerd in this space, like we had also been, interested in AI, AR, VR. I've been going to Sundance for about as long as I can remember, and there's a really great sort of house that they have at Sundance that they've had for years called New Frontiers. And, going back to like the Oculus days, like it's just something that I've always been sort of fascinated by. And so we kind of at the same time also started sort of interfacing with companies that were sort of building with AI, and sort of, at the end of this intersection of AI, AR, VR, and blockchain. And so all these sort of new technologies were sort of helping us attract clients at the same time, Francesca, that just, 2 or 3 of our fashion brands, sort of blew up. I always say, kind of like went from Queens to Paris like overnight, and
Wow.
artists, and it had a couple big M&A deals. So like it was kind of the situation where, if you think about it, we started in 2009. All those companies we incubated, 2010, 11, 12, 13, I'd say 2010 to 2015. If you look at the companies that we incubated back then, right, the ones that, could barely pay us, or paid us with art, or paid us with stock or something else, right? All of a sudden, when the pandemic hit, many of these companies really blew up. So I
Wow.
I kind of loved it because it was a very organic growth, and it's been like a combination of us sort of being sort of recognized at some point for our familiarity with technology in the creative spaces, but also it was really just like building our company alongside others, and we all kind of grew up together, and it was and it's really great because when you do that over a long period of time, you also build a really nice community, which I feel like we've done too. So that's been one of the more exciting things over the last few years.
I love that you and before I say, can you hear me okay? My microphone.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
okay, like this is the beauty of doing things live. My microphone came unhooked, so I just want to put this back in. Wish I had
Sure.
a tech team. Well, I do. It's my husband.
All good, all
Okay,
good, all good, all good, all good.
I think I'm back on because this is a better quality
Okay.
mic. So I love what you said because it gave me this vision of you working hand in hand with your clients as partners, especially at that early stage, which I think a lot of lawyers miss. And even companies miss this.
Yeah.
So in order to grow and succeed, like is a testament to the fact that your clients have become from Queens to Paris, that they become big companies. I think that's a testament of the quality of your work and how you had smart clients that saw the need to have good lawyers as partners, not going to lawyers just with problems, but really working with them at the beginning stage to build a strong foundation so that when real problems arise, the building doesn't fall apart because you built that foundation. So I love that you said that.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, Francesca. And actually, I always say to younger lawyers, you probably see me write something like this on LinkedIn at some point, but like I think I figured out, and again, I think a lot of this was working with artists because this is just the way you have to work with
Yeah.
artists, but it's really helped us also work with like, public companies too, with this same philosophy, which is, you know, I always tell like younger lawyers, if you want to be known, if you're the lawyer that's known for drafting really good deal docs, or drafting a really good, brief or motion or something, right? That's when the client is going to come to you because they know you for being the person that drafts the really great documents. And that's
Mhm.
great, right? I'm not saying there's any one way to success, but to answer, to kind of reflect on what you said, the way that we were sort of able to get in and sort of are now kind of viewed as like partners to so many of these brands and people is because we kind of always try to get in with our clients, or be valuable to our clients way before any
Yeah.
legal issue or legal document ever comes up. And I
That's
and I think a lot of lawyers, they're a little timid to do that, right? They're like, well, am I engaged? Am I getting paid for this? Am I, whereas a lot of times it's like, well, if you want to just be the sort of valued advisor that you're talking about, sometimes it just means like brainstorming with your clients, right? And that's all part of like building that relationship. So like if you're the lawyer that's really great at drafting the docs, that's when they're going to come to you. But if you're the lawyer that's been in the room when the brand was created, or when they're figuring out how on earth to structure this, or what to call the brand, or like who to hire as the first employee, or whatever the case might be, if they know you to be valuable in that regard, that's gold, because that means that you're going to always be in the room before any lawyer is in the room. And
for
that
sure.
sort of, helps ensure that you will have this kind of like advisory relationship for like a long time.
I think it's the key to success. I think it is the key to success in business in today's digital world. Everything is so fast paced that if you don't have a good lawyer with you early, because businesses can go from a startup to $100 million company almost overnight with social
Right.
media and all of the digital platforms that we use. I see that. I see clients that start with okay lawyers, right? Like okay, average attorneys that are just advising clients where they are. They're not advising clients to in anticipation of their growth and success. So we have clients
Right.
that say, "Oh, I did my one trademark in the U.S." But now they're knocked off in China, in the EU, in the UK, and it's on a global scale. So I think the key is to work with these companies early and meeting them where they are, but not just advising them as, oh, this is just going to always be a small company, but what's the future going to look like for this company and how can we anticipate some of these issues early to save them money?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's so true, Francesca. I mean, that's huge, right? Like I think and it's the infinite sort of conundrum, right? Because like
Mm.
you need the most important guidance early on, but you have the least amount of resources to get that guidance early on, right?
Yeah,
And so that's like that's hard. I mean, I think you know, I personally think that is one reason why I'm really excited for technology because we're developing get back to your first question a little bit. So we've been developing a few legal tech tools
great.
here at Gyrum, and we've it's really been like an 18-month odyssey. We just started doing some live testing this week actually with a few clients, and these two products are going to be launched the Q1 of next year. But one of them, which is a trademark search watch cease and desist tool, is really great because from just going out to the market, it will reduce the cost of doing these kinds of searches and clearance work by probably 80%. But it
That's
also
great.
keeps a human in the loop because a lot of, especially the bigger brands, I mean, startups are a little more open to this, but like the bigger brands, they don't necessarily want to trust their, arguably most valuable IP, their trademarks, to just some technology tool. So by keeping a human in the loop, you sort of maintain that level of
A
service, as
lawyer
you
human.
mentioned. A lawyer human, right? Exactly. But I think what's interesting about this tool, and there's a couple others we're developing, and I've seen others in the market too, is I think that there's an opportunity in the next 5 to 10 years to have artificial intelligence and other adjacent technologies really help democratize the legal service. And I do think it's going to
Mhm.
ultimately benefit entrepreneurs, small businesses, and it will also help the biggest companies in the world too, because so many, everybody's got a budget, right? And so now, if you're building a new brand and and you want to test out, marketing wants to test out, 50 names, maybe they can do it, right? Whereas in the past, it'd be like, well, we can only test out 5 because it's so expensive to do search and clearance or something like that, right? So,
Technology is also going to help lawyers. So I know when
yeah,
we say it's going to save money, that some lawyers think, eek, like what's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to the billable hour? Um, I am a huge advocate for it. And as I can tell you are developing
yeah,
tools, it's just going to make us advocate better for our clients. It's going to make us better lawyers. It's going to allow us to deliver better results to clients. So you still need lawyers. You're still going to need the same amount of time for lawyers. But if a client has, X amount in budget, you're going to be able to deliver way more value than you could have without these tools with the same budget. So I think it's going to help lawyers that way economically, but also in wellness wise, the burnout and the administrative piece of I'm sure Vivek, of like running your
yeah.
own firm or even being an associate. I remember just like copying and pasting stuff like, this is insane, I shouldn't be doing this, and it would just
Yeah,
take hours. So the ability to
totally.
cut down on time, I think it's a great thing. I think it's a great
Yeah.
thing for lawyers.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I will say, Francesca, like I think, like in 2022, like I guess it's three Christmases or two holidays ago, we did our holiday card. It was like a ChatGPT holiday card, right?
Oh, that's
And it was
cool.
like, yeah, it was just kind of quirky and a weird moment. But in reflecting now, last like 24 months, and now looking forward, I mean, even just building these tools, which we're working with two really great engineering firms, one in South America, another one in Europe. And I've even noticed in these 18 months we've been building these tools how much the technology generally has advanced, right? And is starting to get better, smarter, faster. I have to say, like, when email came on the scene, right? So many people were like, oh my gosh, like we're just gonna work so much less. It's gonna make things so much easier, right? But I think the difference is, instead of like writing one cease and desist letter and printing it out and couriering it from like Midtown to
Yeah,
Battery Park, you're just sending, 20 cease and desist letters in a day, right? You're just emailing them all day or whatever you're doing, right? You can just basically accomplish more work with the technology,
correct.
right? I think that that's true also with AI, obviously, but I have to say, I do think it remains to be seen. And I'm really not trying to be like a dystopian kind of person, but if you look at like the capabilities of a GPT-4 or Claude or any of these things out there, I mean, um, its ability to do a lot of like the
I think we lost him. Oh no. Hold on, guys. Vivek?
I'm here. Yeah. Did we lose you?
Yay!
Okay. All
Okay,
right.
so let's get it. So continue, pick up with its ability to do so many things.
Yeah, so I mean, its ability to do so many things is pretty impressive, and I do think that it already kind of almost can, but like pretty soon we'll be able to do sort of a lot of the junior style work that we
Yeah.
all are familiar with. So it'll be interesting to see what this really does for staffing. Like it seems weird to me that there would be thousand lawyer firms in 5 or 10 years, in ten
I love
years.
that
Like
you're
it just
saying this. Yeah, especially as like a vision, like when you're a CEO, you have to always have the vision of what the firm's going to look
yeah.
like. And that's so interesting that you said that because I used to say, oh yeah, I want like a couple hundred attorneys. With did you read the book Exponential Organizations
No, I
by
never read it.
what's his name? I've totally Peter Diamandis. I think he
Oh
wrote
yeah, Peter Diamante.
it.
Is it?
I'm gonna drop it in the cat
Cool,
in the
cool.
chat in the text of when we
Okay.
post the recording. But that's what this talks about is that you can build multi-$100 million billion-dollar company. They say you can build $1 billion company with 10 people.
Yeah. Well, look at OpenAI. They've got a couple hundred employees. I mean, now with the funding, this huge financing round, maybe there's more, but they were under 100 employees for a very long time. And look what they've accomplished. I mean, they built ChatGPT with less than that.
So what I think for in terms of yes, it's just it's a bit dystopian and it's a little bit nerve wracking. But the way I like to encourage people is to say that you should be investing in your skills, and also we may just see more companies instead of just having 1,000-person firms. We may see more Vivex and more Escas that are contributing with smaller teams, but being able to do, I mean, the amount of work that we've been able to do in the past year and a half since starting, like using technology, it's not, I can't just
Right.
give all the credit to me and my team. Like it's really the ability to leverage these tools. I think we're going to see more people potentially start their own practices and build firms.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just this week, today's Thursday, I had lunch with two, big, one's public, the other one's not, but still a few thousand employees, two big companies, GCs I had lunch with this week, clients. And, in talking to both of them, it is like, it wasn't like this even 12 months ago, but GCs are really looking at technology now, right? To be efficient, to reduce
Yeah.
costs, to manage their budgets. So I think you're right. I mean, it's like we like this idea of nobody should be using AI. Lawyers are so special. Is if you have that
Oh,
thought, then I think you're going to be extinct, right? I think
AI
if
is not
you
going to take your job. People who know how to use AI and
totally
lawyers who know how to use AI will.
100%, because at the end of the day, nobody's really hiring us for like our research and writing skills, although they may be very good. They kind of expect that our research and writing skills are going to be very good because that's what they expect when they hire a lawyer. But they're hiring us for our judgment, right? And
Yeah.
so I think now it's going to be more about, okay, you've come to me with a problem. Right now, usually it's like, okay, what's the strategy to solve that problem? What's the cost to solve that problem? And what's the timeline to sort of solve that problem? I think that's still going to be how we sort of conceptualize solving a legal problem for a client. But we're going to, the cost and timeline part of it now are going to be, you know, those are going to have to be sort of counseled too, right? So, when to use this tool versus that tool, when to engage this kind of software to accomplish the task versus this one, right? All those things will have a huge impact on timeline and cost. And so I think, the next few years are going to be interesting. I think we're like about to see. But the other interesting thing, as Francesca, and I think you'll appreciate this, is I think it's going to sneak up on legal more than other industries,
Yeah.
right? Because, and I think the reason for that is, oh, I gotta be honest, when I've been tooling around with some of these things a year ago or 2 years ago, it was fun, but ultimately I'm like, these are fake sites, wrong cases, doesn't make sense, right? But now it's changed. Like now, if
Oh
you go
yeah.
use GPT-4, it's good. I mean, you can go, but you should always verify, and of course, all that, right? But it's good. I mean, I don't think anyone can really deny the fact that wow, this is like at least it's materially better from a year ago, right? And so I think, if you look at like the AmLaw 250, right? Like the biggest firms, places where you and I probably worked, years ago, right? Like those firms, out of the 250, my guess is, and I have looked at this, I have an exact number, but I don't have it in my head right now, probably about 230 of those were the exact same 30 years ago, right?
Mhm.
So there is a major incentive for those in power to just retain power, right? So how do you do that in these like legacy kind of industries like law and like some areas of finance and medicine, right? Is really by not changing anything, right?
Mhm.
So that's why we are the only remaining like private industry that we cannot take outside financing. Right. So, we have to do like handstands and corporate restructuring, like, whatever's to get like our tech company off the ground. Right. Because we're, ultimately we may want to raise money for that or something. Right. So you can't take outside financing. Two, you, Francesca, I think you're in New Jersey or in New Jersey, New York, right?
Yeah.
You can't take a 4-hour drive to go represent a client in Massachusetts without spending a boatload of money, studying for 6 months for a new exam,
Yeah.
right? Why is that? This is the only industry you have that. Well, that's because again, those 250, they want to retain their power, right? And so why, and then why does the cadence of all this go so slow? You were saying 10-page memo. Why do we even have 10-page memos? Because you can charge a boatload. And the only way the AmLaw 250 knows how to sort of increase their top and bottom lines is two things, right? Increase the rates. Now we're paying partners 2,500 bucks an hour, or increase the amount of hours your people work. And you addressed it earlier. We've got a major mental health crisis in
Yeah.
the legal industry that's happening, right? All of this is going to explode. And I do believe that now. And you might be like, well, why? What's happened right now, right? Well, the technology's gotten so good that it's got to come from the clients. Because as long as the clients keep feeding the 2,500 next year, it's 3,000, 10 years, it's 4,000 bucks an hour, right? As long as they keep feeding that beast, that AmLaw 250 is going to be relatively the same. And people like you and I, won't be a part of that. But nor do you and I really want to be part of that. But
Yeah.
I think, now with the GCs and the clients, and it's really unfortunately, it's not going to be the startups, it's going to be the big public companies. When the bigger brands and those GCs start to realize the benefits from using technology, boutique firms, blah 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 blah, blah, which I think they're starting to in a much bigger way. We're seeing it, at least I think now. I've seen it a lot more in the last 2 years and in the previous 5 years. I think that's going to be a whole new day for us. And I think a lot of these things, right, are going to come toppling down. Like you're going to be able to move to California with your family and work there if you want. You're going to be able to, have one of your clients invest, 5 million bucks in your next sort of idea for ESCA, right? You're going to be able to do these things. And I think technology is going to play a big role in getting our industry to get there.
100%. And I know it's scary for some, but it's our new normal. It's the new reality. And I think
Totally.
leaning into it and being smart about it. It's why I was really excited to have you on. And this conversation was amazing
Yeah.
because um, some people just don't know, and they are open to it and open to growing, but are eager to hear what visionaries, are doing, like you, and people who push the envelope like me. So this was great. I'm so glad that you
Yeah,
took time to chat today. This is awesome.
cool. Awesome. Thanks for having me, Francesca. Always enjoy talking to you. And
Thank
good
you
luck on
so
everything.
much. And
Yeah.
so everyone, we're here every Thursday, 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. This was